Yeah, so let's talk about that. What we are going to today talk here is we are going to talk about how we can use static resource within Salesforce. A static resource can be a type of two different types like JavaScript or CSS. How we can get the current user ID we have already seen in the previous video. And then if time permits, we are also going to talk about how we can create the reusable JavaScript. So far we have seen how we can create the reusable CSS file. Today we'll also talk about how we can create the reusable JavaScript files. So if we talk about external libraries that we have already seen, right? Within a HTML file, we can directly use a script tag where we can provide the script src and whatever the URL that we have for the script. But in Lightning Web Component, if we wanted to utilize any script, if it is an external library, it could be like CSS or JavaScript file. For example, full calendar chart.js or the tailwind CSS. You have to first download the file from the external system that you can download with the help of CDN, and then upload that file as a static resource within your Salesforce org. And once your file is uploaded there as a static resource, then you can refer that file into the Lightning Web Component with the help of few libraries that Salesforce does provide. So this is the syntax, the simple syntax that we used to do whenever we are in a need for loading the external libraries within our Salesforce. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to import the two methods based on our need, the load style and load script, which are again coming from a library called Lightning Platform Resource Loader. So load style is a method which is used for loading the JavaScript, not JavaScript, the CSS styles from your static resource. And load script is a method that its name indicates it is mainly for loading the JavaScript file from your static resource. And then as you wanted to load the static resource, you need to import the static resource within the Salesforce resource URL and the name of your static resource. Once you're done with the import, you have to use the methods within either connected callback or rendered callback to load the different JavaScript, different CSS, different styles. So this is the syntax. The syntax is same for both load script as well as load style. The very first keyword is going to be this keyword, which we are saying in this particular component, we are loading the file. Then we have to provide our library, the fully qualified name for our library that we are. So we will talk about what the fully qualified library is. And it does return the promise. So promise contains all three methods, then catch and finally. So if the loaded, the external system is loaded successfully within Salesforce, this then method will get called, and then you can perform all the logic, for example, drawing a chart or creating the full calendar, that kind of thing. So today we are going to talk about mainly on the chart.js and a CSS file. We are not taking full calendar. The reason because it will basically make you confused. It will keep you confusing when we are working with full calendar, because it has so many libraries, so many folders within the library itself. For that, if you really wanted to learn how to embed a full calendar within your Lightning Web Component, I have a complete blog post step by step, so that it will be easy for all of you to understand how you can embed your full calendar. Full calendar, what is a full calendar? So basically full calendar is a calendar, as its name indicates, calendar. So basically it's a type of calendar that you can embed in your Salesforce, and then you can display any either events or accounts, contacts, any standard or custom object that you can display in the UI. So let's talk about this chart.js. We already have a URL. I have also opened this chart.js. So what this library used for, chart.js, is used for basically creating the chart, as we have seen, right? Basically it does create as its name says that this is a chart.js library. So it's used for drawing the multiple charts. So if you have a bar chart, you have pie chart, you have donuts, different types of chart or line chart you wanted to create, you could use this library and you can draw your data based out of your maybe different data sets that you have within Salesforce. Maybe the object could be sitting on, the data could be sitting on custom object. Sometimes there would be requirement, not like regularly, but sometimes there might be requirement where you really need to create your what we will say, the charts, the different type of charts. You might want to showcase the different UI components within your Lightning Web component. Then you might need to use Chart.js. There are other libraries as well, like D3. I think there is something called D3 library, but depending on your requirement, you will be using different library. So the very first thing that you need to really understand whenever you are working with external systems or external libraries is the syntax or the document, how exactly your the third party system says how you can embed the details or how you can use the details. So if you see here, it says creating a chart, and this is just a simple example for our script. This is our HTML file and says that this is the script that you have to embed, and this is the script that you have to write for creating this kind of chart. It says this is the outcome, right? And then you can keep looking on configuration or different chart types. So let's see how we could get there. So it says there has to be a division, the HTML tag, which is going to contain a canvas. And this is our external library that we wanted to include within our Lightning Web component. So you can just open this like copy and paste it in a new tab. So you will see some JavaScript file written over here. All you need to do is just do Control S and save it somewhere in your system, okay? Because we are going to need it. And then navigate to your like Salesforce org, log into your Salesforce org, and we really have to create the static resource. So I believe you all know how to get the static resource, but still I'm going to showcase you. Okay. So we are going to navigate to setup. And from the setup, just search for static. So you'll see static resource. Click on new. And just give it the name. So let's say I'm going to say Chart.js. So give it a meaningful name that you can easily identify. Click on choose file. Then you really need to go to find out where your file is sitting. Select the JavaScript file. Click on like select that file. Change the cache control from private to public if you want. If not, then private is also fine. Click on save. Okay. Now your resource is loaded into the Salesforce static resource. Okay. The next it says that it has HTML, it has some JavaScript file. So let's navigate to our VS Code, and here we are going to create a new Lightning Web component, and we are going to say resource loader, just a name of our Lightning Web component. And here what we talked about is we have to import the method. So that method is, because currently we only wanted to import JavaScript, so the method is going to be load script. We are going to say from, it's going to be Lightning platform resource loader. Okay. So this is our method. And then we also need to import the resource. So it's a import. Let's say that we are saying Chart.js from, we are going to go to Salesforce resource URL. Okay. And then our resource is the name of our static resource. It has to be as it is that you have created here. And let's deploy this and see if your component is able to deploy or not. And we'll be able to see if the syntax is correct or not. So as you can see that we are able to successfully deploy the code. That means the import statements are correct. Let's navigate to meta file, expose it to the Lightning app builder pages. So we've just exposed, right? And then let's go to HTML. And within HTML, we are going to have first we are going to have LWC card. Title, you can change it to something like external libraries. Icon name, either if you want, I'm going to say custom, maybe something this, I'm not sure if it is available or not. Okay. And as usual, we're going to just change the paragraph to division. And here we are going to draw our chart. So what our document says, it says you need to have either a division. If not, you must need to have the canvas, because if you see the canvas ID, my chart is being used here, right? So what we have to do is we just need to do the copy paste for the canvas, and instead of ID we are going to say class, because we don't want it to use ID. And here what we are going to use is we are going to use one directive called LWC DOM, and the value for LWC DOM is always going to be manual. Okay, now what this says that under this canvas or under this paragraph or under this division, wherever you are saying LWC DOM equal to manual, we are going to feed some data from JavaScript, either from external libraries. So whenever you wanted to manipulate the data from JavaScript or external libraries, you need to use LWC DOM LWC DOM equal to manual. Okay, and the value is always going to be manual. And then it says that this script we have to use to generate the chart. So let's go ahead, and here we have to use. So as we talked about, right, first we have to load this JavaScript. After the JavaScript is loaded, then only we need to create the chart. So to load the JavaScript, what we will do is anytime you wanted to load the static libraries or external libraries, we will always use rendered callback. And for that, we are going to say is rendered. We're going to create a variable called is rendered as false. And then we are going to use our lifecycle hook method is rendered callback. Here, as we talked about, we are going to use if is rendered return. That means rendered callback is already called once. Else, we are going to say this dot is rendered equal to true. And here we are going to load our library. So how we are going to load libraries? We'll say, okay, load script. The first parameter is this, and then second parameter is which script we want to load. So we are going to say chart.js. And if everything is successfully executed, we will get into the then method. If there is some error, we will get into the error method. Okay, sorry, catch method, which is going to give us the error. So within then, let's quickly have a console.log, and that will say resource loaded. Okay, and let's deploy this. Our code is deployed. Let's get back to the Salesforce org. Add the component here in the home page. And we will see if our message is actually coming in the console or not. If message is not coming, I will try to debug what the error is coming. So our application is external libraries, the custom component we just created. And we could see the HTML is getting rendered. So that's fine. Let's save this page, get back to Salesforce, and then open the inspect element and go to console. And in the console, let me bring it up to you. You could say here it says resource loaded. That means our static resource has been successfully loaded without any issue. Now we wanted to get back to the next part, which is using this CSS within our, using this JavaScript within our LWC. So let's copy this and paste it over here within the then method. So JavaScript is loaded. Now few things that we need to check is, the line number 20, which is getting the element document.get element by ID, and this is not going to work at all because of shadow DOM. We have talked about shadow DOM does not entertain document methods. Okay, so to get our that this is our canvas that we wanted to get, right? So what we have to do is we have to use the query selector. So you could say constant ctx, we are saying context, and we'll say this dot template dot query selector, and this is our component. Okay, and the top one is going to be commented, and everything else is correct because we really don't want it to change the chart value at all. So we will go ahead and deploy this. So this part, the only thing this is some of the part that you need to change whenever you're working with your custom custom JavaScript. Mainly CSS is going to be very easy. So if you could see here, right, we are able to see the chart which is beautifully rendered here. Now this is your first step. That's what you have to do as a first step whenever you're working with any external library. Try to load that external library and see if you are able to load, and either you are able to for example, this is basically rendering a chart. So if you are able to render the chart or not, and then later on you can just maybe go and play around with this, right? It says bubble chart or line chart, donut and pie chart, right? It's donut, and there's this one pie. So you could always go, and then you could always go to what exactly the setup was. You could just try to do the setup in your JavaScript, play around with this and see what exactly happens. Okay, so that's basically how you are going to work with that. So that's what basically we had for JavaScript. The next thing that we are going to talk about is, and I'll just let me paste you this link in the Skype, sorry, in our Slack channel, so that you could get easily this. And then there is a full calendar here. Get started. Now let's talk about maybe 2 to 3 minutes about full calendar. How, if you wanted to get this full calendar implement within your LWC, how you do it. First of all, you really need to go to find out the full calendar. And one thing that I'll tell you, so that you really don't need to go and spend much time. It is like you really don't need to use the latest version, because the latest version of full calendar is not always compatible with LWC. So the version that is compatible with LWC is version 4. That's what I have tried. Version 5 I have not tried ever. So version 4 is, I would always suggest for you to go ahead and try with this version 4 of your Lightning full calendar. I have also posted the link into the Slack. Now you might wanted to see how you could just go ahead and use this full calendar. Okay, so you just go to this link, get started link, and you can just go to initialize with a script tag, or ES6 is our system because we are using methods like this. Okay, so you would see that this is basically something that we are using for rendering the calendar. This is the JavaScript code. In place of this particular chart, we have to use this. First, we have to get our calendar element with the help of LWC DOM. It could be division, it could be paragraph, and this is the JavaScript you have to use. But if you see on the top, it has clearly used some import, and these are basically import on a different language. But in our case, in our Lightning Web Component, we really need the static resource. So we have to download. Okay, and if you see here, these are some of the CSS that you need to import. Okay, and how you could download it, you really have to go to, okay, initialize with the script tag. If you go there, you will really not find anything to download. Get started it there. Maybe if, yeah, here you could see here, download. If you go to view all release, it's going to open the VS GitHub basically, and you need to download version 4. So you keep scrolling and you'll find the version 4. Okay, there are so many versions it has released, so maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 pages. Yeah, here, this is the one that you need to just download. I'll just give you the link. Okay, and then you can also download that. But if you download, right, you'll see that it really has so many folders within it. So you really need to look into what files are there, how you wanted to import it. And then I'll share the blog post so that it will be easy for you to work with this. Okay. Now let's talk about the CSS part, because in Salesforce, we all know that we all, I think most of us are not at all the front end developers, and I'm not at all. Like I really afraid of developing the UI. Okay, I can develop the basic UI, but not the good looking UI. So for making the UI good looking, there are various libraries available. Like there is Material UI from Google itself. There is Tailwind. There is Bootstrap, and there are so many CSS frameworks. So Tailwind is really, will say, popular framework these days. So if you go to Google and search for Tailwind CSS, you'll see the first top URL. This is tailwindcss.com is the URL that you can navigate to, and you would see how beautiful it can design the example. Like it can really design the beautiful CSS for you, not CSS, beautiful pages for you. Okay, and all you need to do is you just need to use the CSS. That's it. So if you see here, I'm just scrolling, and you could see that most of the CSS that we really need, we could really see that most popular things are already developed by this framework. So you really don't need to use it. If I have to showcase you, okay, I have basically practiced this. I've used this CSS framework in my org. Okay, I'll showcase you. You will see that how beautiful it basically develops the UI for you. Okay, so you could see here, right? This is with the help of Tailwind CSS. You could see this user profile is here, login, sign up. This is the menu page that we can design. Login page, you could see how beautiful it is. The product, this is basically the product detail page. And then this is basically the contact us page. If you really wanted to create FAQ, then this is basically your, sometimes you add the items into your wish list, right? So basically this is your wish list. Order detail page. Then these are categories. So this is product detail page. Again, this is a contact us. So this kind of pages, if you really wanted to create, most of the time you will see that the developers out there usually use a framework, and Tailwind is one of the CSS framework that you could use. So this is the link for Tailwind CSS. I really find the hard time to find out the CDN link that we can download. So I've just pasted in the Slack so that it will be easy for all of you to find it. Now, if you really want, you can find like Tailwind CSS. Let's say that Tailwind CSS login page example. You just Google it and you will see some of the examples out there. Open it and you will find out the examples how you use that. Okay, you see this is the example here, and maybe you could click on show code and you will see the complete code here. Okay, and then change it based on like the image you want to change. You want to change the icons, you wanted to change the text, kind of thing you could use. So how you do it, you really need to download this file within your local machine. I already have, if you see here, tailwind.min.css. And then as usual, we have to create a static resource and click on new, and then say, let's say Tailwind, and save it. Yeah, so before I go ahead and like we start working on this, any questions so far? Anyone? Can you please let me know why we are using LWC DOM? I missed that. Okay, so anytime you wanted to feed some data, you wanted to inject some data from JavaScript to your Lightning Web Component that is coming from external system, like creating the charts or hosting the external payment application like Stripe, PayPal within your Lightning Web Components. you cannot directly use it. So you have to tell the system that, okay, this is the manual DOM like injection that we are doing. So you have to use this LWC DOM as manual wherever you are injecting the data from the third party data libraries like uh, Google Calendar, not Google Calendar, like full calendar, uh, the chart.js, d3.js, or Stripe, or some other applications that you have. So you have to use that LWC DOM. Otherwise, it's not going to let you inject the data, and you will get into the errors. And even it will not let you tell you that why the error is coming. So whenever you're trying to manipulate the DOM, you have to use this LWC DOM as manual. Is it clear? Okay, any further questions? Okay, so if not, let's go ahead and talk about how we have already imported this Tailwind CSS. The syntax is very simple. Now, there are two different, like there is load style, load script we talked about, and we talked about Tailwind CSS, right? Now, there are two things. Either we say, okay, let's use now this is a CSS file, this is a JavaScript file. To load the JavaScript from a static resource, we have a method called load script, and load the JavaScript from, load the CSS from a static resource, we have a method called load style. Okay, and we can use this load style here as well, and we say this comma and the CSS we wanted to load here. And we can again use then, that is our success callback method. We can use catch, that is our error callback method. But if you really have so many CSS, right, CSS or JavaScript, how you're going to manage this? This is really going to be repetitive line of codes, and it's also going to be too much code for all of us. Okay, so to get rid of this, what Salesforce says that, okay, you could use the promise class method. So there is a class called promise in JavaScript. Okay, and then within promise there is a method called all, and it takes multiple promises. Okay, and then it basically gives you the then and catch, and finally. Okay, so what exactly it is, if you really wanted to learn more about it, so you could say promise all method, and you can just go and search. I would basically recommend this developer.mozilla.org. Basically, this is really, I'll say, powerful website for learning JavaScript. So you would see here, basically it takes multiple, where is promise all, where is that? Yeah, here it takes basically the promises in the form of array. It gives you the success callback, it gives you the error callback. Now, one catch that here you need to take is, as it says that promise dot all, that means it's expecting success from all these three promises. If there is any failure in any one of them, this complete loading is going to be failed. Okay, but in Salesforce, if you have multiple external libraries, that's how we are going to use. Now, how we are going to use is, we really have to use this all within the array, and how we are going to get it here is, we are going to say, we have this load style. Okay, this is the one. Yeah, so we need to say load style comma, we need to say load script, and the further part we really don't need. And this part, which is for creating the chart, you could just take it and put it within this here. Okay, and I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. So we are going to basically have an error here and also print that error. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, our deployment is successfully done to Salesforce. We'll refresh this page and we'll see if our external library is loading something or not. Okay, so resource is loaded at it's like, and we are else, still able to basically see the changes there. Changes in the sense our chart is getting loaded. Okay, now let's talk about the CSS part that we have seen. So this is our login form example, not this one. Okay, this is also good if you really want. If it has basically show code option, we can just show code and then we can get this CSS, or we can just copy this code. Okay, this is basically having the complete CSS for us, giving us the outcome, which is this, something like this. Okay, so we'll just do the copy paste, and within this itself we are going to paste this code, not going to make changes on anything else, just deploy this and we will see if our CSS is working fine or not. So we're just seeing, we are just checking if our CSS is also successfully be able to load or not. And you could see here the CSS is successfully able to load. Few things are not actually getting rendered as per our need, because the CSS, the tailwind CSS is somehow being reflected by the Salesforce internal CSS as well. So that's why we really get it here. If you see here, this search box also has been altered because of this tailwind CSS. But our CSS, whatever we basically loaded, is working fine. We can definitely always try to look what is the issue, maybe try to check with Salesforce or some other things, and to see more about why the particular things, why but the CSS are not working. Or you can also look, you see here, right? Now, this particular part is also not taking the full place because of this CSS. There are always, like, sometimes the CSS is going to break, and then you definitely have to take a look what could be the issue for this. But we clearly see that our CSS is working fine. And similarly, you could work with some like bootstrap CSS or something called material UI CSS from Google itself. I think there is some issue with my browser itself now. So you can also play around with other CSS, like material UI is there, material UI CSS framework. So this is also from Google itself. Google has provided this CSS framework, and you could directly download this and then store it within your Salesforce. Okay. So I can also give you this link as well. So any questions so far? Bootstrap. Yep. Okay. So if not, then let's talk about the assignment part for this external CSS. Okay. So I've just went ahead in the advanced part of the assignment. So what you have to do as part assignment is you really need to implement the full calendar. That's what your assignment is. You need to implement the full calendar, and within the full calendar, you need to display the calendar from your own Google account. If you really face, like if you're facing a problem for implementing a Google Calendar, for event Google Calendar, you could just implement a simple full calendar. Just implement a simple full calendar in your Lightning Web Component. It's really going to give you multiple things, multiple, I'll say, kind of how you're going to load the CSS or JavaScript at one time, and the multiple JavaScript and CSS which are within the multiple folders. Okay. So this is going to be the article that will be helpful for all of you. It really has everything from where you can download, even the code is there for you, the different libraries, how you can load those libraries, and then how you create and render the calendar, then Apex class, output images. So most of the things you are going to get, and the code is also here in the GitHub repo. You can use always the code if you want, but again, you really need to know how to import the CSS and JavaScript. That's the main purpose of this assignment is. This is how the full calendar actually looks like, where you see the different events that are coming up. You see based on the day or based on the week or month in a different languages as well. I tried to display it in Japanese. That's why it's coming in Japanese. And the next assignment that you have to do is you need to create a data table using jQuery. That is a JSON. That is again a third-party JavaScript library. jQuery, I think most of you already know. It's basically used for creating the beautiful UIs like data tables and so many other libraries. But we only are intended for this table part only. It gives you the CSS, it gives you the JavaScript, it tells you how you could create the table. It gives you the complete code here, and you can just get started here. So basically, it's going to give you the complete step-by-step guide for you. All you need to do is have patience, practice, read the document. Any questions since assignment? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the reusable JavaScript. Okay, so we have talked about reusable CSS in the previous video. Now we're talking about reusable JavaScript, how we could create the reusable JavaScript in our Lightning Web component. So as you are a Salesforce developers, you already know how to create the reusable Apex code and how you could really use reusable files for keeping your code clean, making it easy to maintain, making it you change it at one place and the changes are reflected at every place where the change are like the classes or the code is being used. Similarly, in JavaScript, we could also use we could use reusable JavaScript files for multiple purposes, like displaying the toast notifications, having the form validation, calling the Apex classes, reading the custom labels, or parsing the errors and displaying it at certain place. Okay. So these are some of the use cases where you would be using this toast notification, the reusable JavaScript. How you are going to use this? We are really going to create again a JavaScript a Lightning Web component, and we are going to have some functions, and we are going to export those functions. Okay. So, and then we are going to have some assignments as well. So let's talk about. So what we will do is we are really going to create a Lightning Web component, and we will name it as utils. Okay. And in this JavaScript, sorry, in this Lightning Web component, if you see we have HTML, we really don't need. So let's go ahead and delete this. All we need is the JavaScript file. That's it. And we also need this. Okay, all we need is the blank file. To start, what we have to do is, let's say you wanted to create a method that is going to display the hello world only. That's it. Okay, so you could create a method like function hello world. Okay, so this is a normal function, and you just need to put it whatever you want here. You could say hello, like you could use an alert and say hello world. Okay, this is just your simple function. Or you could also create a function in this way. You say constant, and you can say, let's say, welcome message. This is your function, which is not accepting any parameters. Okay. Or you could also create a function like this. If you say constant and say add, and it takes two parameters, let's say param1 and param2. Okay. And it also basically returns the sum of these two parameters. So you could say return param1 plus param2. So basically what we have seen is we have seen the different variants for creating the methods, and we have also seen the simple methods. We have also seen the method that is returned. Okay, this is just the simple things that we have. Now these methods are not going to available at all. Now what we have to do is, if we really wanted to make our JavaScript method available to the other web components, like utils JavaScript method available to the other web components, what we have to do is we have to use export. We have to export our method, okay, so that other JavaScript, other LWC component can import. So if you see right here, we are importing the methods right from the libraries. Now we are creating our own library here where we have created 3 different methods, and we are exporting those methods so that any other Lightning Web component can use these here. Okay, let's go ahead and deploy this. And your utils is there. Now what you have to do is, let's say you wanted to import these methods in, not in toast notification, the one that we've just created, let's say resource loader here in this JavaScript file. So how you will load is, you really have to say import. What's the name of your method? That is hello world from, you have to say c-utils, because that's the name of your component. Utils is the name of your component, and C is basically the namespace. And then you could use this hello world. So let's say we are using this hello world within our connected callback. So how you will use is, you will say, because this is a method, so this is very simple. You have to say hello world and that's it. And then just deploy this. Okay. And let's see if this really works or not. So this is really easy for all of us to create the reusable methods. All we need is, we need a Lightning Web component with just JavaScript file, and create the methods we wanted to create and export those methods. Okay. So you see here we've got hello world, and we click on OK, and that's coming. That means we are able to call the method. This is just one part. Now let's say later on you really wanted to import the labels. Okay, let's say now what we have seen is, if you remember, for custom labels, we really have imported these 3 labels right from our Salesforce, and then we are just utilizing these labels in our input file. Now let's say that you have got so many labels within your org, and you are using these labels at multiple places. The same labels you're using at multiple places. Okay. So what you really have to do is, you really have to import, if you're using this way, you really have to import the methods in all the components and then use it. And later on, if you really need to add one more label, let's say you have 10 labels, you imported at 10 different components, and you're done. Okay. This is how it is basically 10 labels, and same labels are basically being used at 10 different components. Now later on, there is one more label that comes into the picture. So what you will do is, you have to go and find out all these different components and modify those components and to reuse this new, like add the import statement and then do whatever you want. And if any of the components misses the import statement, you'll get into the errors, and it will not tell you why the error is there. So what we do is, basically we create a reusable file. Okay, and we import the methods. So we just import the label here in that file itself, and what we do is, we really create maybe a variable, or what we can do is, we can even directly export these methods as well. Sorry, we can export the variables like this. We'll say email, first name. There is some error, it's basically coming up as here. So basically we can export the method something. Okay, we can also export variables like this instead of methods or anything. We just export the variables, import those in your JavaScript class and use those. Okay. This is one for your labels purpose that we talked about. And it's really not going to give you any error. You just deploy it. Next thing that is the toast notification, right? Because I'm sure you're going to use the toast notification at so many places. So what you could do is you could create a method, maybe let's say constant, and you can say so toast, which might accept few parameters, and then export this method. Okay. Now what this method can accept, it can accept what is the message, what's the title, what is the variant, what is the mode, okay, and maybe what is message data. Because there is something called message data, right? And then here, what you could do is what you have to do is prepare an event. Maybe let's say, so toast event is going to be new. So toast event. And how you show the toast notification is you have to first import, right? So you really have to import the toast notification here. And this is what you are preparing. Okay. And then what it takes message, whatever the message you've got from the user. It takes title, whatever the title you've got from the user. It takes variant, mode, and message data is something that you really need to, okay, this is something you have to do. Prepare an object here. So let's say message object. And then check if there is something in message data, because message data is something that you only provide whenever you wanted to dynamically bind the value, right? So you can see if there is something called message data. You would say object message dot message data equal to whatever the data you are getting from the user as a input. And then use this message object here. And you can return the same so toast event which you have just prepared. So this way, what you are doing is basically to preparing the event notification at your own JavaScript multiple places. You're just exporting a method. Okay. New so toast event. Okay. Make sure that you're not using the same name here because it's giving an error here. So we are going to say so toast notification event. Now this is this importing being used here. Then you can call this method at one place and then pass all the required values and you're done. If you wanted to test it, you go to maybe your resource loader, import your method by comma separated, and you can just say here so toast and you pass the values what you want. And your toast is going to be prepared. It's going to give you the toast notification. You just throw it. You just go ahead and dispatch this event. It's going to work like you have seen earlier as well. So that's how basically you create the reusable JavaScript. There would be multiple cases where you might wanted to create the reusable JavaScript. And you have got this, this is going to be a utils. And this basically utils is going to have the code that you are using across your complete Salesforce org. There could be some use cases where you wanted to reuse the code within the Lightning Web component itself. So let's say that you have got a huge Lightning Web component, more than 700, 800 or 1000 line of code, and you wanted to put some code at different file so that it looks better and it's easy to maintain. So what you could do is, if you remember, we talked about we could create multiple files, multiple JavaScript file within the same folder. So you can do this way. This is my quick account component. I have got 3 different JavaScript files. Quick account, this is my main JavaScript. Okay. And this utils is again a JavaScript file that I have got 3 different methods. Okay. And one of the method is validating the input. You clearly see here, it just take the page. Okay, and then it's validating the input. And then one of them is basically nothing, it's a class. And this class has multiple methods, and we are exporting here. We are directly exporting the class. So you could also use this way where you have multiple like reusable methods that you can utilize within your main JavaScript. This is your main JavaScript. And this is how you're going to import. So this is so hello, and handle validates is a method. Okay. And now from where I need to import is I need to import from the utils file that is within this folder. That's why I says that, okay, only navigate to this folder only and find this JavaScript file. Similarly for my class, which I have exported, again, this is an advanced concept, so I'll not confuse you. So just focus on this part only. And then to call this, you just have to use whatever the method that you have. And you could see here, handle validate apex is also being used here. And if I have to show, this is my component where I'm already using that validate and the hello world. So if I click on create account, you could see the validation is working perfectly fine. And my method is also being called here. So your reusability of JavaScript code is also going to play a vital role when you are working with Lightning Web Components. Okay. So that's it. Any questions before we talk about assignment? Is it clear, or I made it very confusing? Assignments will be challenging, then that's how you will be learning. Remember the teacher from our schooling that teaches us 2 + 2 = 4, and it gives us the assignment. Okay, if Ram has 3 mangoes, Syam has 4 bananas, and Raju eat 10 samosas, what is the weight in the moon? For so that's kind of assignment I'm also giving you, so that you kind of put all your efforts there and you learn. Yes, definitely, like help is always there. Yeah, so I think, okay, yeah, this is the only this is the assignment for you to create the reusable JavaScript. Like you have to create a, maybe you can create a reusable file, which could be utils or LDS utils. You could name it anything, and you have to create 2 methods. One is for calculating the mortgage, and one is for the show toast. We have already seen, but you just need to go ahead and implement it. To calculate mortgage formula, this is basically, these are the 2 links that you can refer for what are all the required parameters and how you could calculate the mortgage. So just go ahead, give it a try. If not, then definitely we can go ahead and have a look if you are facing any issues. These are going to be easy once you basically do the practice. You'll find it very easy.